Thinking in Circles, back with another lecture. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to look into the squaring of the circle, which I think is a very, very, very deep and important tool that will help you to understand many different philosophical ideas. And you'll be able to use it as somewhat of a master key in your personal studies. I've talked about this situation and idea with quite a few individuals that happen to have a little bit of a deeper handle on esoteric matters and issues, and in the way that this type of situation or ideology, if you will, links to psychology, Jungian psychology, which is what I like to talk about and what I like to use a lot, because it allows for the delving into myths and the ideas in myths, because they're ancient, because we're looking at ancient secrets. What ends up happening is they tend to divulge a lot of psychic material, or material of the psyche, the mind. Okay, so I'm gonna get straight into it because it is a little bit lengthy. But in the lengthiness of this material, you will find a key, if you stick with me, that is going to open up your understanding on not just the great work itself, but about the mystery behind the conjunctio oppositorum, which is the psychic conjunction of the opposites, okay? This is what we're dealing with every day. This is what we're dealing with in situations that we're struggling with within, and we're not understanding it. We're going through a crisis or whatever. We're battling against something that is opposite outside of us, but also with our own way of seeing it, our own way of looking at it within, okay? And we need to make union of our egoic mentality and what the unconscious through the self is trying to show. So, the squaring of the circle, the Sphinx's riddle to Oedipus, and the key. Okay, that's why I call this lecture here. Okay, so I'm going to read the key inscription from emblem number 21 from Atlanta Fujians, Oppenheim, circa 1618, by Michael Meyer. Okay, and you guys might have heard it, and it says, make a circle out of man and woman. Okay, now I need to footnote this. The circle is a symbol of wholeness and also of the objective psyche. It's everything. It's everything that's allowing you to experience consciousness. Okay, the circle. Man in this idea is the conscious ego. It is also the animus, and the Hebrew idea of it is Abba, the father, okay? The masculine side that the feminine side was taken out of, because man was made both feminine and masculine. It was both. And he was separated. Both of them were separated, taken apart from one another. There's a Greek myth that I may put a picture up of here, a little summarization of it, that shows that, or that says that the first human beings were round and were complete. This is just basically says that we were complete, but we had both sides. In a man has the anima, which is hidden. It's the hidden woman. It's almost as if you could look at it as the ghost of what used to be there. And woman has the animus, which is the ghost of the male that used to be there. It's a ghost of that first completion and that first unity that was present in the beginning, if you will, okay? Woman in this portion represents the unconscious, the anima, and also in the Hebrew ideology, Ama, which is the mother, the feminine portion. When she's fertilized in the Hebrew Kabbalistic idea, she is called Aima, because the Hebrew letter Yod, which represents a seed or fertilization, spermatozoon, is implanted and placed into her. as we see, is the result of every human being that is here right now at this particular time, that spermatozoan having proceeded from the male. Okay, so the next portion of this says, out of this make a square. So the square is the same as the circle. It's just individualized within our psyche subjectively in this understanding, because the square represents the ego, that which thinks it is I. When I say I, you see me. This is not me. This is not who I am. This physical body is not me. I'm something much higher than you. Never seen me. You've only experienced facets of me, just like no man can truly know God but through the facets that he has created, it through experiences, through objects and different things, so that we can know his, or really its, nature. Okay, so the square is also the four functions delineated, which are thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Okay, and the square also represents a self-aware ego. How could the woman and the male, right, that are in this circle, that the circle is to be made out of, how could they become aware to come into union, okay, to perform the holy marriage, to become one with one another in conjunction, the conjunctio, right? How could they become aware if they didn't have self-aware egos to understand? We understand if we can purport that man and woman at one particular time were taken and split from one another, if not psychically, if not in the cosmos at one time, before man and woman, the physical beings, were placed here. Because it happens as above, so below. Happens above first and proceeds below, okay? Out of this, make a triangle, okay? The triangle symbolizes man and woman as one. 360, okay? Remember that 360 are the degrees of a circle, okay? Divided by 2, each representing half of the circle, okay? It also represents the three supernals and mother letter, the three supernals rather, and mother letters, which are Aleph, Mem, and Shin in the Hebrew alphabet, whose enumeration are 341, which form pi, as pi equals 3.415, etc., 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 1415, etc., 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 right? We get pi from this. Also, it is Elohim, which the A would be 1, the L would be 3, the H would be 5, the I would be 1 again, and the M would be 4, which is 3.1415, okay? And that's the let us make man in our own image after our own likeness that we see in the Bible, okay? Let me make sure I didn't gloss over any footnotes, because I see some footnotes here. Give me 1 second. Okay, so to continue, okay, basically what we'll have here is, it says after out of this make a triangle, or out of this a triangle, and then you will have the philosopher's stone, okay? The philosopher's stone can be linked back to the prima materia, Mercurius, the aqua doctrinae, which is the liquid form or liquid version of the philosopher's stone, the new and unified body, and that pertains directly to the imagery in Rosarium Philosophorum picture 10, okay? And it is also the anthropos rotundum. In the rotundum is the stone, and when you have dreams that deal with stones and different things, especially precious stones, we're talking about the rotundum there, okay? In Jung's diamond model, excuse me, of the psyche, you'll find that the rotundum is all the way on the bottom, and that it fits directly into the top. It makes what they call a circulatio with the anthropos quaternial, which is all the way at the top. This constitutes an Ouroboros, okay? And what that also goes to speak about when we think of this is that not only the statement that I said earlier, as above, so it is below, but Kether is in Malkuth, and Malkuth is in Kether. We have the Anthropos realm being something more celestial. When you have dreams of stars, dreams of the heavens, dreams of outer space type travel, this is talking about the Anthropos quaternio, you know, and you can use this quaternio system, which Jung didn't say much about. He didn't say too much about. He kind of dropped it after a while, right? You can utilize this to actually decipher your dreams, okay? And I will put a picture of that up. That way you guys can get a look at exactly what I'm talking about here, and just know I'm not like, you know, pulling it out of my hat somewhere, you know, just to have something to say. Okay, so what I say about this original text, right, when I talk about the circle, when I talk about the square, when I talk about the triangle here from this diagram by Michael Meyer, okay? I say these three shapes, okay? The circle, the square, the triangle, measured out in degrees equal 360 for A, which would be the circle, okay? 360 for B, which would be the square. And for C, which is the triangle, is 180 degrees, okay? And if you add these severally together, you're going to get the number 900 or 900 degrees, okay? And 900 degrees is really something to think about. It's kind of big because that equals the number in the Hebrew Kabbalah for the letter Zadi final. And Zadi final is Aquarius, okay? The man in the east is what Aquarius is, or Zadi, okay? And it's part of the cherubic elements in which you have the eagle, the lion, the bull, and the man, okay? This Sadi is the man, okay? So the man in the east, the symbol of our astrological age, which started in 2000 AD, marking supreme technological advance, okay? Or advances. The supremacy of the intellect is also what this age represents. Revolution and upheaval. The fullness of the scientific age, okay? Spiritual awakening and the forthcoming age of destruction by fire. Remember also that fire is, on the psychic level, representative of the age of enlightenment. And remember that we are in Kali Yuga, okay? And at the end of which, Kali Yuga is what I'm talking about, the avatar Kalki, and that's the name of this avatar, this deity, will bring the known rebels in the universe into disillusion, and then bring restoration, ushering in an era of peace. And that era of peace is called Satya Yuga, okay? Now, I wrote a side note on this Satya Yuga, okay? In Revelations in the Bible, this same thing is mirrored in the idea of Christ making war, riding on the white horse, and the kingdom of heaven subsequently, after all of the cataclysmic events occur, coming to earth, okay? The kingdom of God being with the kingdom of man, okay? And then that's, once again, Kether is in Malkuth, and Malkuth is in Kether, okay? From the Kabbalistic tradition. And Kether is the first Sephiroth. Malkuth is the last Sephiroth, the 10th, all the way on the bottom of the diagram. And it's saying that 10 is 1, 1 is 10. It's the same thing, okay? So Satya Yuga, okay, is a virtuous age to come before the ultimate dissolution, which is called Mahapralaya. While heavily mythologized, this process is mirrored in the final stages of inner transformation of an individual. Okay, so this is not just talking about And I'm saying not just because there are people that believe this is something that is actually physically going to happen, and just might. If you just look around at the social climate, it's probably some hundreds of years off, but I mean, it's probably something that can literally happen. Okay. This process is mirrored in the final stages of inner transformation of an individual, meaning it's a subjective experience. The eschatological story, the eschatological idea is something that is experienced on a subjective level when you go through anxiety, stress, confusion, worry, when you go through a neurosis, when your complexes are getting out of control. Because you'll also hear people say and use speech that can be even taken metaphorically, that like they're acting like it's the end of the world over this situation or that situation. It is a subjective revelation that is to come for them at that point, okay? Especially depending on how big it is, and then also how much they will align their conscious awareness to the issue at hand, okay? So individuation, I say, usually occurs at the second half of life, the lifespan of an individual, which is possibly undertaken much later in these contemporary times due to the deepening stronghold of ignorance upon the mass populace. And this is a very, very real statement, because individuation is supposed to be a half of life process, like at the half mark of your life, which, you know, for people around in Jung's days, they probably lived until 60s, maybe their 70s, okay? So 35, they were supposed to be dealing with the individuation process instead of the ego separating from the self. Now the ego is trying to find a way back to its original state of wholeness at 35, okay? But if you look at how much people are steeped in their own ego inflations, they're narcissistic, they're totally lost in the delusions of the false self, it may take people longer. 50 might be the age where people start reaching out and saying, man, you know, I've lived my life like a total idiot, and I need to, you know, go back and really find some newness of life and mind and become a new being, you know? Because that's also too what this is talking about is, as Christ said, you know, in order to enter into the kingdom of heaven, one has to be born again or reborn, you know? Well, how the heck can you do that if you've already been born? It's talking about an inner new birth, you know, and you experience this in your dreams when you have, per se, the dream of a child. You know what I mean? It's not every day that you dream of a child unless you're a mother, or if you're a man, unless you're a weirdo or something, you know, and I don't even want to deal with you then. But I'm just gonna continue here. Let me just continue. Let me continue here. Let me stop. Okay, so now we're gonna link this idea from Atlanta Fujians, okay, that we just read to the Sphinx's riddle that was posed to Oedipus, okay? And the myth of Oedipus, the story of Oedipus, is really good for each and every individual to look at and to see through this story how the tragedy of Oedipus applies directly to them, and how blinded we could be going through life and in chasing our destiny, and still sometimes end up with nothing, and still end up sometimes in a definite tragedy. And it causes you, when you look at this myth or story rather, to and they actually call it a tragedy. That's the type of writing it is. It causes you really to look at your own life and really to look at the mistakes you've made, the triviality of life, the triviality of how we cling to things in life. And I'm going to get into this portion here because it exposes how even before Oedipus went through everything that he went through in the tragic play, right, he really answered and experienced something that was highly symbolic with the Sphinx. And I think many people, when they look at this part of the riddle of the Sphinx and the Oedipus tragedy, they gloss it over and they don't see that this is talking directly about the squaring of the circle, and that's what we're going to get to here. And what I'll do is on the screen put both the text from the Atlanta Fujians over this text. I'm going to put them one on top of the other. That way you can see how they juxtapose so perfectly in the way that it is explained. Okay, so I write here, now Oedipus, his whole myth offers a mirror to man and his psyche, as I aforementioned. And then I put an asterisk here, as Jung, Freud, and many others have copiously expounded upon. So I don't really need to do it here. I just gave you like a glimmering, an inkling maybe. And I think what I'll do is put a link to the visual playwright. There's actually a movie form of Oedipus story. And I find myself within the year every now and then watching it a few times a year. It's actually very, very worthwhile taking a look at, okay? So, however, unto the mystery of the squaring of the circle, okay, his, Oedipus's, bout with the Sphinx offers yet much more, and you will see it if you read the riddle of the Sphinx in line with the alchemical statement we glossed over earlier. So the question of the Sphinx, okay, and let me tell you what the Sphinx represents roundabout, okay? The Sphinx is the overall guardian of the mystery and symbol of the great work of transformation. A grounded Sphinx, if you see a grounded Sphinx, okay, it represents man's animal nature. We see this on the seventh card of the tarot titled the Chariot, okay? The crowned or winged Sphinx, which I believe is on the 10th card of the tarot called the Wheel of Fortune, represents the divine or spiritual potential available to man, okay? So they comprise a bit of the same thing, okay? But on different levels, okay? But as above, so it is below. Kether is in Malkuth, Malkuth is in Kether. Let's not get divisive in our thinking or dualistic and see one is totally separate from the other. That's our problem here in this life now, okay? So the Sphinx asks, what has one voice? And that's portion A of this, okay? A as in apple or atom. What has one voice, okay? And I'm going to explain this here, okay? The circle has one voice, okay? This is what this represents, the circle. As man, conscious ego, and woman, unconscious, unified. The objective psyche rectified is what this represents, okay? Now, in the stages of development of a human, this is the newborn baby, okay? Because of why? Because of the indecipherable cries that all seem to sound the same. Wah, 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 wah. But if you think about it, the mother knows intrinsically what the child is crying for. What is it that it needs, you know? The father, a little bit less. So this kind of gives you a glimmering of an insight into the conscious ego, what it is able to see, which is a very small portion of the actual truth, you know? I actually have some statistics from an individual that was a psychologist, and he was also a sociologist, that wrote about how much of the brain we actually use as far as through the conscious ego, and then that also reveals how much of the unconscious we don't use. And I may enter that here just as some extra layover information that would be worthwhile to see, so you can see why maybe we need to marry the conscious ego and the unconscious. We need to seek a rapport between the two in the work of individuation, which is the great work, okay? And also too, what has one voice? The mineral and the plant level in creation. Now, the mineral and the plant level have one voice. What the hell are you talking about, Isaiah? What? Okay, there is a statement in the Christian Bible, which once again, I mean, I refer to the Christian Bible because there are so many archetypes within it. There are so many archetypes within it. If there were not, the religion would not have persisted up until this point this long, though dwindling in support, though dwindling in favor. It would not have persisted this long in the psyche of the average individual. Okay, so I refer to it because also too, it still is embedded in your psyche, whether you go to church or not, because it is part of the Western psyche, Christianity and Gnosticism as well. Okay, so there is a Bible verse that says, if we are to keep our voices quiet, even the rocks, the mineral level, and then how much more would the plant levels cry out, right? And the life in the plant realm is seen in the idea of Jesus Patabilis, which is he who suffers and hangs from every tree, he who is suffering in all things, even within us. If you've ever been under the weight of your own suffering, if you've ever cried, if you've ever asked questions why, if you've ever felt like God has turned his back on you, well, remember when Christ was on the cross, he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. Okay, it's something that's within all of us that cries this out, because we are all suffering to different degrees for different reasons, but under the same ideology of Jesus Patabilis, which is the life of lives in the plant realm or the plant world. And I'll put a layover about that up. That way you can acquaint yourself with that idea, because I would be talking quite a while if I went all the way into it. Okay. So, okay, what has one voice? That was A. Now we're going to go to B as in butter, or B as in bug or bat, okay? Next one, what has one voice but goes on 4 legs in the morning? What goes on 4 legs in the morning? Okay, this would be a child who is growing, okay? Who is, or an adapting baby. You know, we see that they start crawling and start moving around, okay? And this goes back to the square, 4, okay? And then we also have, because of the square or the 4 functions delineated, getting an understanding of the world around you. How? By crawling around, by playing with things, by touching, by tasting, by being down on a level that an individual on 2 feet, right, which is next, doesn't really get down on those levels and already thinks he knows what the hell is going on at that point, okay? You see what kids do as they're crawling around. They're putting things in their mouths. And I tend to have an uncanny memory of my childhood when I was a kid, when I was at the age to crawl around. And what I used to do was crawl around the house. And in my musings, one of the things I used to love to do, and I used to do it a lot, was unscrew door stops. And I would take those door stops under a corner of the couch that we had inside of our apartment unit, and I would hide them. They'd keep getting them. I would hide them. I would stash them, because I was just amazed by those things, the noise that they would make when you hit them and they go ding, ding, ding. I would be amazed by those things. I'd put the dang thing in my mouth. I'd put a bunch of other things I wasn't supposed to at that age in my mouth as well, though, too, to explore and to understand all the nuances of those things. And that's what we do with the 4 functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, intuition. We do that with all 4 of those in our day-to-day life. It's just the experience. Instead of becoming instead of being something that's just all physical, it becomes something that is more spiritual at that point. It becomes something that is more inward experience. It's not that we don't make experiences physically and outwardly, but we just don't do it like a child would, put in everything in our mouth or whatever, you know. Some things we choose to think we know what that experience would be like and gloss it over and move on, okay? So the animal level is the level in nature that this going on four legs in the morning responds to as well. Okay, and that needs not to be explained, really. You know, it's plain to see. Most all animals go on all fours. Those that don't usually point to and represent symbolically something higher, like birds, spiritual. Apes are mimics of men. We see that in the wing of the heart, as there's a baboon that's on the top of the scales, representing almost a caricature of Tahuti, who is writing down and recording the outcome of the balancing of the heart against the feather of Maat. And this baboon is supposed to be a caricature called Cynocephalus, who is laughing and mocking Thoth. Okay, and I can go further into that. I'm not going to do it. We're going to continue forward here. Okay, we're going to continue forward because I have pages to read for you guys here. Okay, what has one voice but goes on four legs in the morning? And then the next portion of this B, we call this B2, what goes on four legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, okay? And this 2 in the afternoon corresponds to an adult teen, okay? An adult / teen, okay? And I write in parentheses, the square has 360 degrees as the circle does, but is an egoic approximation of wholeness. 2 in division of 360 degrees gives 180 degrees, a triangle. And it is in this stage that we might perchance reach towards the next step for individuation. 180 degrees plus 180 degrees equals 360 degrees, okay? In this stage, we are at half of 360 degrees. Some would say, oh, Oedipus had a failed or very turbulent individuation process, because shortly after this adult teen level, okay, a teen going into an adult leading towards elder age, right, which is half of life, okay, which is what Jung said was the time that people reach towards individuation, okay. This is the time where we're supposed to be moving towards that, unless we're going to end up growing older and just be termed an old fool, which many of us in this day and age decide to be, because we don't want to let go of our animal nature, which directly precedes this portion, okay? So the next portion here is going to talk about the fullness of that 180 degrees, or that triangle, okay? And it says what goes basically, okay, I'm putting in parentheses, what goes on 3 in the evening, this part C, what goes into 3 in the evening, okay? And this is an elder, okay? This is an elder. And hopefully I said for the 2 in the afternoon part that it's man in the natural world that goes on 2, okay? But not just man and ape. And I just said something about that as far as being an old fool is basically like being an ape. You never really evolved into your full mankind potential. But for the 3 in the evening portion, okay, we're talking about an elder person, right? He's either a wise sage, okay, a wise man, an individuated person, okay, or he's an ape. He's basically an old fool, you know. He's a person that never changed. You know how they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks? That's a lie. Just some people are so set in their ways and they want to stay there, and they never wanted to do the work to begin with, to change, to become a better person, okay? That's why they say like Freemasonry lodges are about making better men. You see what I'm saying? They're being made better because they're actually doing the work. Okay, so I'm not a Freemason either, by the way. I'm gonna throw that disclaimer out there as well, though, too, because I don't like fake claimers. I'm not going to be a fake claimer. And individuals get in some real big trouble for making those claims. I am an individual free thinker. Okay, so at the end of the day, a wise man is what this 3 in the evening is talking about as well, though, too. Okay, becoming a wise man if you don't become the old fool. Okay, and basically is an individuated person. And I'm going to give you a for instance about this 3 on the evening, because they're talking about a person that's walking with a staff. He had 2 good legs to walk on as an adult, but he's having problems with his body, so he walks on a staff, which would be a cane nowadays. Okay, back in the days they used to have sticks, big walking sticks. Okay, Solomon, I said, died leaning upon his staff, and he was most definitely an individuated person. And lest the 72 spirits of the Lemegeton, for instance, or of the Shem Hamaphorash, the divided name of God, under his command, were to be fooled that he was still living, and basically they would stay in his charge. They would stay listening to him because he had power and control over them, right? The termites, by the call of Jehovah, were called to eat at his staff until he visibly fell dead in the sight of the spirits, right? So that they could be released from his charge. Okay, so that's the idea of the wise man there. Okay, and in we can say the natural realm or the natural world, what would this 3 in the evening represent? Angels, all the way up to the God level, because of the Trinity, the triune God, which is something besides man and woman, and then something that differentiates into man and into woman. Okay, and then we have the angelic entities, okay, which are the Elohim, okay, which are 3, which are represented by 3.1415, which is pi. Okay, which Elohim, the word Elohim anyways, breaks down to. Okay, and it also links back to our idea of Aleph, Mem, and Shem, which is Shema, the name of God. Okay, so Oedipus then answers to the Sphinx, man, and then she ends up falling off, or she or he or whatever it was ends up falling off the precipice that it was on when it was asking the question. Had he not been able to answer the question, the Sphinx would have devoured him. He would have been a dead person. But he was at that point, knowing that, better off dead. Okay, so therein kind of is another warning to he that would like to gain knowledge of esoteric things. You're stepping into knowledge that could drive you totally crazy, that could send you off into a very ill-fated direction. But it's the work, and it is the duty of everyone that wishes to know to do. Okay, so man by Temura equals Amen. Okay, Amen is a name of Kether, the first Sephiroth in the Hebrew Kabbalah. Okay, or Sephira as singular. Okay, in the Kabbalah is Amen is Kether, and is also Amun Ra, which is the highest God form or deity in Kabbalah. And Amun Ra is the highest deity in the Egyptian cosmogony, who is also linked with Kether. Okay, and he is a God form that is a creator and self-born and self-creating. Okay, so it really talks about your origin, if you were to approximate and come to the understanding of the level of that knowledge, you know, because it's one thing to be able to say, oh, I've been self-begotten and all this other stuff, self-made or whatever, how people go back. But the thing is, the real truth is that you, the real you, who you really are, you are self-begotten. You know, Eastern esoterics, Buddhism, will teach you that you are God. But there's a way of coming to that knowledge to really know that you know that you know that nobody has to tell that to you. And there's a non-inflated way of saying it, though. We're not saying this in an inflated manner with egoic pride. It's not about that, because really being a human being, while we're able to be here and garner knowledge, gain knowledge in this world, by understanding systems that will reflect the knowledge back into our psyche, wherein we get awakenings, that at the end of the day, we've been abdicated from a better position by being here now in the physical world, in the body of an animal. Okay? That might be getting a little bit too deep, so we're going to continue forward. I say, overall, the squaring of the circle and the Sphinx, okay, and its riddle, it points to the attaining of gnosis and inner realization of unity, okay, which frees one from blind faith. Jung said something like, until we make the unconscious conscious, we will basically succumb to it in some way. I'll put the quote up on the screen, and we'll call it fate, you know? So the thing is this coming to self-knowledge makes the unconscious conscious. We have to make the unconscious conscious in order to get to that. And the thing is, though, is then we can step out into our destiny, because at that point we know ourself, higher self, big S self. At that point, there's a report going on there. Okay, and then we're rightly guided at that point there. Okay, so continuing forward here. So as noted in the last portion, okay, and here in this portion, we're going to get into more of the numbers and more of a deeper understanding of the emblem of the great work, okay, because there's so much more to understand about this here, okay. So as noted in the last portion, that the emblem 21 in Atlanta Fujians is composed of two circles, one circumscribing the whole image, which adds another dimension to our current focused enumeration of 900 degrees, okay? I'm going to put that emblem back up on the screen for you to see, okay? With another 360 degrees added, we would then have 1260 as a number, okay? Because of the larger circle that's on the outside of everything, okay? That's encircling the work, okay? Which among many things gives the word. So the number 126 gives the word by Hebrew gematria, okay? Rs, which is big Aleph is 1000 plus Resh, which is the R, 200. Samek is 60, okay? So we have Aleph, which is A, Resh, which is R, Samek, which is S, Rs, A-R-S, okay? And this is 1260, 1260, Latin for art. And this points to Mercurius, not only being the stone of the philosophers, the prima materia and the master of the art, but also the divine hermaphroditus, male and female, conscious and subconscious, man and woman as one, right? What you're supposed to make the circle out of, right? The symbol of completion, right? Note, Rs equals art, skill, craft, trade, power, etymologically, what it basically means, okay, the description of the word, right? And derives from the Proto-Indo-European roots, or roots, H, lowercase 2, RTIS, which means fitting, which is coupling, which is the conjunctio, okay? Also, H2ERTIS, which means fitting, both which stem from H2ER, to fit, to fix, to put together, which are conjunctio and eros ideas. Solutio via Venus is also a direct connection, yet also coagulatio, as it is desire which coagulates, attraction playing the key part in generation, which we see Mercurius doing as both the star and the dove in the alchemical work of the Rosarium Philosophorum. And I'm going to put some pictures up of Mercurius as the dove and as the star, okay? He's bringing the conscious and the unconscious, shown as Sol and Luna, in the woodcuts of the Rosarium Philosophorum together for the conjunctio, for the union, and for the final creation of the glorified and transformed body, okay? So, let us remember that solutio equals solve, okay? The word solve in Latin. And coagulatio equals to coagulate, okay? That's coagula. Solve et coagula. This is what you see on Eliphas Levi's Baphomet. I'm going to put a picture of that up, okay? And let us also remember why these two words sound familiar. Eliphas Levi's Baphomet as a symbol of the unity of opposites, synthesization and completion of the great alchemical work is what this is pointing to, okay? In the idea of the great work, Levi's Baphomet and alchemy in general, there are hints of illumination being cultivated and brought down, but also some undertones of the idea of eschatological destruction by fire being intimated, as fire is also symbolic of both. Think about that flaming fire, that light that is on the top, that lamp that is on the top of Baphomet's head. One being a spiritual interpretation, and the other a more prima facie physical observation underlying the suggestive symbolism. And we've talked about the spiritual ideation, but the eschatological comes forth as we enumerate the degrees found in the symbol of the grand opus. And we're going to get to that because on the word eschatological, right, I have an asterisk that I want to read here to you, okay? The word eschatological links to the idea of the word apocalypse, which has the idea of the cover being removed from a sealed mystery, okay? And the symbol of the great work, which I am expounding upon as a key to many mysteries, does just that. It lifts this seal from many a mystery. So the etymology, eschatology, comes from Greek eschaton, meaning the end, the utmost, the worst. Apocalypse equals the APO portion, off or away, and that's a Greek word, okay? And kalypto, to cover, to put over as a covering. So it is a pulling away of a veil. Remember, the veil hides the holiest place in the Temple of Solomon. It is a disclosure of a great secret. And I am going to put up a chart that I really want you to look at, because this whole idea of the temple, the holiest place, a place of private. Think about that, a private place. That is hidden away, where the most intimate things go on between the priest and the higher self, or God, the unconscious, right, which is represented by the feminine, right? This is going under a skirt of some sorts, okay? And the mystery of the psyche is also linked to the idea of sexuality, concrete sexuality. This is why the conjunctio is shown in Rosarium Philosophorum picture 5 as two individuals locked in a sexual embrace, okay? And it's something to think about. You know, in the revelation, in the psyche, we look for big revelations, for a look behind the veil into the secrets. And we know that we've seen the secret because we can no longer ever look at life the same way once we have come into these secrets, because life in those old areas where we were basically hoodwinked, now we can no longer be hoodwinked in that way anymore. It's a shock. It comes as a great shock, and we're changed from that point forward. It's the same thing with sex. Okay. The same aspects that go into the revelation, even the revelation as it is disclosed in the Bible, correspond to the courtship rituals that lead up unto the consummation of a sexual relation with between a man and a woman. Okay. And at the end of the consummation, or the start, there's a disclosure, there's a revelation, people taking their clothes off and becoming one body. Okay. And I'm not trying to be rude, crude, or nasty in my comments, but I'm just going to show you how the physical level can also open up great import on mystified and shrouded symbolism that pertains to the higher things. Okay, and I am going to give you guys this layout. I thought a little bit about possibly keeping it to myself, because it does shed light and open an awareness on some things that I'm pretty sure there's some people that would not want people to see it in this form. However, with the number 7 and with things that deal with the number 7, we're also seeing other and some would say perversions of the higher symbolisms in the earth and on the earth now. However, if we look at everything that people are going through and things that people are going through as stages towards enlightenment in the plan of the great work, everything is as it should be, and everything will be seen as it should be by individuals that have the eyes and both the tools to see. Okay, so continuing forward now, we're going to look at the degrees, the enumeration of the degrees found in the symbol of the grand opus. Okay, the circle is 360. The square is 360. The triangle is 180. The circle that inscribes the whole thing, okay, the whole symbol, is 360. Added severally, it gives 1,260, as we have aforementioned. I will read off a short but interesting description of what the end times idea of the day-year principle is, as it links to our number. But more interestingly, to me, is that this type of geometric finger pointing to our emblem and ruler, because it's a ruler. This symbol is a ruler, okay? It's a measure of the work, right? It can be found in religious doctrines, myths, scriptures, and hidden in plain sight within esoteric wisdom systems and oracles. Okay, it's there in the tarot. It's there in the Kabbalah. It's there right there in the Etz HaChaim, the Kabbalistic tree of life. It's right there in front of us. In many other systems as well, though, too. The mandalas that you see, it's sitting right there. The Baba Chakra. I'm going to put pictures of these up here for you. This symbol is sitting right there, plain open for you to see, but you never have seen it in this way. Okay. So I write a footnote on what was stated about measure. Okay. Already in this lecture, it should become clearly evident that neither God, nor angel, nor man, plant, animal, or mineral levels of existence could materialize or express any dynamic action without a paradigm or guiding model, okay? A pattern by which they act and are enacted upon. This is a prerequisite, and the symbol of the great work expresses this truth, as it were, a dogmatic key to understanding existence. Okay, it gives you an understanding of a key to existence if you understand this symbol. Okay, the word in Hebrew for pattern, mold, form, model, figure, structure, or blueprint is tebonit, okay? Tebonit. Since all things are finding agency and form via this paradigm, they are ba tebonit, okay? Or in the paradigm, in the model, in the, we could say, image of, okay? And that equals by gematria the number 864. Now, you may not, some people that just heard that probably are like, oh, what? It's probably a mind blower. For some, it just went right over your head. And that's how tacit this symbology is. That's just how tacit it is. It's something that has layers and layers and layers and dimensions of information in it via the numerology, via what the numerology links to, via what the shapes themselves mean, and these are to be known. This is the type of stuff that they are learning in Freemasonic lodges, for instance, and if you're able to get an inkling of the understanding of why this is important and how this is important, if you can see this is how these people are feeling about the knowledge that they're getting, their awakenings. I mean, and that's why it's called an awakening. They're eye-opening moments. This whole week and a half that I've been preparing this lecture for you guys, I've been having these moments where it's just like, man, this information, while I've known bits and pieces of it, just putting it all together in one place and beginning to see it synchronistically everywhere has it's really just given me another tool, another key, another measuring rod for me to not only measure the outer temple in which all the profane things are, which even in the Revelations, those things weren't even to really be measured, but the inner measurements of the temple, what to measure with within here, you see? So nevertheless, for sake of time, I'm going to continue reading, okay? So we were talking about measure, okay? And we were talking about how this measurement, the measurements of this this emblem of the great work, okay? How it basically pries open the understanding of religious doctrines, myths, scripture, and those things that are hidden in plain sight within esoteric wisdom systems and oracles, right? Okay, so for example, in religious texts, Daniel 7:25, also 12:7, and Revelations 12:14 uses the wording time, times, and a half a time. Okay, time in this statement equals 360 as far as degrees are concerned. That's the square. Times equals the two circles, okay? Or and also too, half a time equals 180 degrees. That's the triangle. That equals 1260, okay? And this comprises the full composition of the sigil, symbol, emblem of the great work. This measuring rod itself, okay? Which is said in eschatology to correspond to a 3.5-year period, a 1-year period, plus 2 years, plus a half year. Okay, that's what that 3.5-year period is. 1 year plus 2 years and a half year. Historicists, interpreters of the Bible see this rather as a span of 1,260 years spanning throughout the Middle Ages, ending into the early modern or modern era. But if this 3.5 was 4 whole revolutions of 360, okay, and this is big, we would have 1,440, okay, which is the full number of the chosen ones, the base of it, okay, of the tribe of Israel, the base of it anyways, okay, the full number being 144,000, who in biblical scripture are to reign with Christ, okay, and Christ, keep in mind, I'm pointing to these biblical figures. Christ represents the ego self axis, and also is representative of the self. It's a way to see the self, to understand the self. The ego self axis is what links the ego to the self. And it's something that has to be built up, tendered up to, and garnered through rapport with the conscious ego and the unconscious, getting that together. It's the glue that keeps those things, or allows those things to come together. Okay, so it's the base number anyways, that full number being 144,000 who in biblical scripture are to reign with Christ, and prior to this event are to evangelize the word and proclaim the gospel during the Great Tribulation period, who are protectively sealed by Jehovah and redeemed from mankind and the wiles of the Antichrist, right? They're sealed with a mark on their forehead, and the mark is the Tav. And actually in older Bibles, it's written as that, the Tav, the cross, the sign of the cross, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, but the Tav is equivalent to the Aleph, the last being equal to the first, and the first being equal to the last. That's why Christ used to say, the last shall be first and the first shall be last. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. You see what I'm saying? So there's plays on words that lead to understanding of esoteric doctrine. Okay, so they're sealed by Jehovah and redeemed from mankind and the wiles of the Antichrist. Now, it may sound like I am preaching here, right? But if one reads or listens to Archetypal of the Apocalypse by Edward F. Edinger, for instance, right? And I should put a link in the description of that, along with the link to the tragedy of Oedipus, the visual playwright, okay? And yeah, links will be in the description for this. One would be given if you listen to the Apocalypse, the Archetype of the Apocalypse lectures by Edward F. Edinger, right? One would be given an understanding that all of this alludes to the event of encounter with the self, which is wounding to the ego, and in the process of individuation comprises a parallel to events written from an objective point of view, which occur on an abstract and inner level within the psyche. Okay, eschatology, end times drama, being an allusion to the time of reckoning between the unconscious higher self and the ego. And just that word, a time of reckoning, right, means coming to a very, very big crossroads. Crossroads are where psychological complexes are created, okay, where catastrophes happen and where you have to make a decision, or when something goes over and now you realize your whole life, your whole way that you look at yourself and everything in front of you has changed, okay? It's a time of great decision, and it's a time of total resurfacing of one's way that one sees things and can move forward, if they can move forward at all after this, okay? So what we have here is, give me 1 second here. So this reckoning, it's a time of reckoning between the unconscious or the higher self, right, and the ego. One either strikes a balance with the self or is totally swallowed or devoured by it, having not integrated the experience due to an honest lack for contextual reference, or for just a simple lack of care to begin with about the whole process. So fools pass on and are destroyed. That's what it says in the scripture about this type of idea here. Fools pass on and are destroyed. You didn't care, didn't really matter much to you, you know what I'm saying? So you kept going forward, and what happened to you? Look what happened to you. Now it's too late. Now you got to pick up the pieces and deal with it, even if you're able to pick up the pieces at that point now. We got to reach towards individuation. Okay. So on that exact note, I put at 58 seconds of that lecture, of the 10th lecture out of 10, which is most likely towards the end of the book of the archetype of the apocalypse, right? And 50 minutes approximate of Edinger's lecture, once again on archetype of the apocalypse, right? There is a poignant few statements that point to the fact that we must come to know certain systems of higher thought, spiritual, esoteric, or otherwise, in order to arrive at wholeness. Lack of self-knowledge is why we must seek out psychologists, therapists, and shamanistic types as vessels and repositories of knowledge, gnosis, that we might not have at that time. They basically carry that for us as psychological containers. They're basically carrying this stuff for us that we cannot carry for ourselves, and they mete it out to us. So they're group containers at this point. What even Edward F. Edinger talked about as group containers. They're carrying our psychic energy for us and meeting the healing energy at this point back towards us, when truthfully we could be doing this for ourselves if we would sit and immerse ourselves in the systematic knowledge and work it out and see how it plays out and learn the pneumatics of these systems. Okay, so continuing, it is only a matter of time before we are faced with such an encounter, and time also entails space, which when given motion or force brings about the inevitability. So it's just a matter of time. When you're in motion, what ends up happening, okay, 5 is a number of motion, okay? 10 is a number of physical existence of objects, okay? Of Malkuth is what they call it in the Hebrew Kabbalah, okay? 5 times 10 equals 50. 50 is a number of change, of transformation, okay? We have motion, we have objects in motion. If there's an object in motion, there's time, there's space, okay? And change is going to occur. Change is also death, because the 13th card of the tarot is represented in the Hebrew Kabbalah as the Hebrew letter Nun, and that's 50, 5 times 10, okay? And I talk about all these numbers too because there's a hidden science in Gematria. A lot of people think, oh, it's just arbitrary. You guys are just throwing numbers around and just saying this or this on it. Some people actually are doing that. But there's actually an ancient science, because a long time ago, in times antiquated at this point, people used letters as numbers. They knew about these original archetypes. Carl Jung called numbers the original archetypes, which they are. Okay, so continuing. Okay, 86,400. Okay, and I put a marking up, which is 864 times 1,000, right? Ba Tebunit, or Va Tebunit, okay, times big Aleph, okay? Ba Tebunit is in the image or paradigm model, okay, of God or the higher self being big Aleph, okay, which big Aleph equals 1,000. Ba Tebunit is 864. 864 times 1,000. It links to the idea of 86,400, okay, is what we're talking about here, okay? Now, I say, remember my comment on 864 earlier, okay? Because I've spoken about 864 so many damn times that my mind is getting scrambled right now, okay? 86,400 equals the number of seconds in a day, okay? Divided by 1,440 equals 60, okay? Which is the number of Samek. 60 is the number of Samek in the Hebrew alphabet. It's also the temperance card in the tarot deck. Samek equals the prop, okay? The prop is what this Hebrew letter is called, and 60 is the smallest units in seconds to a minute, and in minutes to an hour. The tarot card correspondent is Temperance, which links to the astrological sign Sagittarius. Now think back to what I was telling you about objects in motion, time and space change, 60 seconds to a minute, 60 minutes to an hour, 86,400 number of seconds in a day, right? And if we think about the physical world as the illusion, but if we think about the fact that the self has manifested in all things and is holding together all things as the atom, and that in order for things to transform, to attain a higher level, they must die. We're seeing why we're referencing Samech, the number 60, the smallest unit of the second, and the idea of 1,440, and we're dividing it by 86,400, okay? Because at the smallest unit of the plan, the whole idea is to bring the chosen ones in, the best, the first fruits, the best of the crop of the self, the cream of the crop. Scrape that cream off the top. There's a sifting process that is going on in a great harvest, is basically kind of what this is pointing to, okay? So 60 being the smallest and most minute, numbers in seconds to a minute and in minutes to an hour. The tarot card corresponds to Temperance, which links to the astrological sign Sagittarius. Temperance linking to time, right? And importantly, evident to our study now is that in the Kabbalistic system, Samek props or bridges Tifereth and Yesod, the sun and the moon, which are for signs and seasons, for times, letting you know it's nighttime, it's daytime, okay? So it props or bridges or links Tifereth and Yesod, the sun and the moon, the symbol of male and female, the initial 360-degree circle in the great work symbol, composed of woman and man. The symbol of Sagittarius is an arrow, a weapon of Eros, weapon of the love god Kama and his consort goddess of lust Rati. And those latter two deities I mentioned are in the Hindu cosmogony, okay? Desire binding the whole framework of the work of alchemy even, okay? Desire is the reason for psychological projection. It is the conjunctio urge of psychological alchemy, okay? That's that star in the woodcuts of the Rosarum Philosophorum, the dove even. The dove was a creature representative of not only the Holy Spirit, but Diana, also Astarte, okay? So these are some things to think about here as well too, okay? And the conjunctio urge is also the reason why we seek unity in all things and are drawn in motion to what we desire, but for some reason can never attain, even when we have obtained our chosen object of pursuit. All these things and desires being based upon emptiness. Ayin is what this is called, ayin. And the formless and void pre-existing creation, okay? Ayin represents emptiness and the formless and void pre-existing creation. The only way to find ease is to recognize the basis of desires and to reset the object of desire to the one within, the self. Basically, take the object of desire and place it back to that which it proceeded from. Because it's the clinging to all these things that lead us to our suffering and our sorrow. The Buddha was even made to say that, okay? So, okay, the unconscious is the self that we were talking about in the last statement, all else being an elusive construct and finger pointing back towards the grand formator, the one that made it, okay? Which is the self. Samekh equals 60 shows us that there is a time of reckoning in which we must, in the fullness of appointed time, experience an encounter with the self, right? And also a merger with the self, because Samekh, being temperance, represents not transformation like the number 50, the one before it, which was the death card, but it represents transmutation, being changed into something else, something higher, hopefully, right? So in the appointed time, we must experience an encounter and also a unification process with the self, which at best would unify and deepen the conscious mind, sun, and the unconscious, luna, moon, rapport. It would deepen that rapport, creating balance, okay? And I put in parentheses about all of this, 12 times 12, okay, which is just stultifying the validity of the 12 stars, okay, which stars point back to angels, okay, or rather not angels, apostles and disciples, okay. But furthermore, we're looking at the chosen of the tribe of Israel, okay. 12 plus 12 equals 24 hours, for example, times 1,000, okay? And 1,000 equals big Aleph, which is the self / God, and that equals 144,000, okay? So I put a little asterisk here at 144,000. The dimensions and properties of the heavenly tabernacle of the New Jerusalem, which parallel the idea of the lapis philosophorum, or stone of the philosophers, shares these numbers as well. See Revelations 12. Let me see. See Revelations, okay? Not Revelations 12. See Revelations, 12 gates, 12 stones, 12,000 furlongs in length and breadth, and 144 cubits high, okay? This New Jerusalem is basically a cube. It's a big cube that's going to come down and make its place on earth. But this big cube, and I should possibly draw this out now for you, is very, very reminiscent of the Ruach, the symbol of the Ruach, okay? The six-pointed star, the Star of David, the Seal of Solomon. If you show rays emanating from the center to all the points on the Ruach, you'll see that it itself is an equilateral cube, okay? That even in this system looks like it is descending onto the earth, okay? And that's a mind blower right there, okay? So it's 144 cubits high. The glory of God, the self, lights it, which equals 1,000 Aleph. That's the glory of God, the light of God, okay? That's God, the self itself, okay? It lights that New Jerusalem, that new temple that is, in physical terms going to come down. But really, this is that which comes down into us and enlightens us once we start taking the inner reality serious. Once we start measuring it out, once we start looking at it for what it actually is, because this is something that has existed in some ways within you, is going to be built up within you, but none of this is going to happen and none of this is going to be realized until you are ready to start realizing this, and until you have the tools by which to measure it. Okay? Something to think about. So this would be a situation that would create balance inside of us, okay? Or basically then we would fall into a deep neurosis if we didn't go through this, okay? In the time or the event of going through a situation where there was a big problem and we didn't know what to do, okay? We encounter the self, we don't know what to do, we're gonna fall into neurosis, okay? And in this event is usually gonna happen to us either way, okay? It's basically what I'm saying here. It's gonna happen to us either way, okay? And it can deepen dangerously if it's ignored or unattended. If you don't want to get the knowledge to be able to deal with your own issues, you could put it off on a psychologist. You could put it off on a shaman. You could put it off on a tarot reader. You could put it off on all these different people, but it's your deal to deal with. It's your responsibility to do the work, okay? We vet it out to a bunch of other people because we don't have the time, and we think other things are more important when the work that needs to be done within is more important and takes precedence above all other considerations. That's how it should be, okay? In time, we must undergo this trial, okay? The trial of dealing with the self, of encountering the self, of dealing with that encounter, okay? Yet this seal of the great work and the traditions it expounds upon further show the way to endure the calcinating flames, calcinatio, okay? The calcinating flames, and furthermore emerge from the ashes with gold, and not the vulgar gold that we're looking for out here in the world and you know, as we're making money and different stuff like that, but the spiritual gold that's within, okay? But the seal and even the traditions it elucidates bid one to journey inward. Yet oftentimes we go outward, which causes us to have to repeat the cycle of seeking yet again. This is what Edinger referred to as the failed conjunctio. And this idea, once again stated, could arguably be traced in the myth of Oedipus, who gave the appropriate answer to the Sphinx, but just as equally, arguably, did not attain the truth, but after the exile he suffered. See Oedipus at Colonus, which is another playwright that basically will talk about the fact that, you know, he might have arguably attained the truth, but it was after everything, okay? And he basically only attained truth and only attained this light, okay, after he learned to accept his fate, which is divine will, yet he's only deemed blessed and favored in the event of his death and burial in this playwright, okay? It could be argued that that's what it's saying, okay? And there are many other different ways to probably look at it, but, you know, we can go through this life, through this round and fail miserably. And we are going to fail miserably at some things, but we can ultimately gain a victor's crown. And the crown is found where? In the ashes. So that correctly explains Oedipus' whole tragedy, if we were to look at it that way, okay? So to be victorious in this apocalyptic inner trial, just as it was said of the 144,000 chosen, is to have the law, know the law, and follow the law. And I am speaking of the law or laws encoded in the Gnostic side of all spiritual corpus, the literature, okay, which is very transformative to do so, and in doing so. There are those who have and will be given the right to eat from the fruit of the tree of life. It's those people that will be given the right to eat from the tree of life, the ones that endure to the end, the 144,000, you know? And some say, well, how do I know if I'm chosen? How do I know? I mean, if you're doing the work, really the truth is, and I'm going to give you a real big secret, you're only doing half of the work. I'm telling you that right now. All the leaps and bounds that I've been able to experience within myself, I'm going to tell you I've only done half the work. The other half was done for me, okay? By my spiritual watcher, my holy guardian angel, the self, God, whatever you want to call it. And that's how it does when I'm in need of something. I do half of the work, even though maybe I don't feel like doing it. Maybe I feel like maybe I could be doing something else, and maybe something as a quasi test. Synchronistically pops up to see how bad I want it. I still do what I'm supposed to do. And guess what? I see the other half is open synchronistically most times. So I'm just trying to tell you, those are the only ones that are going to see what the fruits that are born forth of their effort will be. But it's only a half of an effort. You're only going to have to do half of the work. Just think about it, okay? So the next portion of this, okay, I'm going to talk about Pesedet, okay, and the Egyptian, okay, this idea. It referred to the nine bows, which variably could have represented Egypt's enemies, okay, as it was usually, okay, the hieroglyphs are what I'm talking about when I say it. It was usually carved under the feet of the Egyptian statues of importance. Yet this set of hieroglyphs was also said to represent completion and wholeness. The circle, okay? The number 9 representing this to the Egyptians, and also representing the Ennead, okay? Which are, what's the Ennead? The 9 chief deities of the Egyptians, which are very highly analogous to the 7 Elohim deities of the Hebrew Kabbalah, in which man was created in the image of. CF, Genesis 1:26 interlinear KJV, and I'll throw that up there. The number 7, which is the Hebrew equivalent to the number 9 here, also links to 7 churches, okay? And the 7 churches represent Neas to the Nassanenes, okay? They're Gnostics, whom Nas, the serpent, was said to be the wisdom of the churches, okay? This equals 7 angels, and 7 angels also are equivalent to 7 stars, the Ruach. And these are equivalent to the 7 lamps or lampstands or candlesticks. And these are equivalent to the sword and the logos, okay? And the logos has many connections to this idea, yet the 7 is the word of command, wisdom, creation, and high intellect in array. In disarray to the one who does not have the law or right doctrine, which is why we must learn, as this doctrine organizes our chaos and disorganization, okay? And this 7 lamps, angels, churches, yeah, etc., equals the logos, equals the aqua doctrine, the fluid and the liquid stone. The importance of referencing this Egyptian PSDT, Pesedet, right, is because it links numerically to the earlier discussed numerical key. P equals Pe, or the Hebrew ideology of the word P, okay? That's 800, okay? The S is Samek, 60. D, T, and Teth and Tav, okay? The T sound, okay? And the D sound are equal to 4. Via Chaldean numerology, I take the idea of the T from PSDT, okay, to equal 4. Why? Because Tav would be 400, okay? That's 4. T, M, and D in Chaldean numerology are 4. So we get out of the P, which is 800, the S, which is 60, and the D, which is 4, and the T, which is 4, we get 864 once again, okay? So a really cool fact to know is that 864 actually is equal to 144 in Gematria, okay? And 144, let me remind you, is the base number of 144,000. How is that? Okay? Because Pe equals not only 800, but it equals 80, okay? Samek equals 60. The Deleth, the DT, okay, equals 4. the last two letters by Chaldean numerological tables, okay? 80 plus 60 plus 4 equals 144, which is 12 times 12. And then times 1,000 equals 144,000, okay? So this 864, then we could say is 144,000, okay? Which is, it's big. This is big. This is really, 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 really big. Time, in the fullness of time, is just awaiting the calling in the fullness of the 12 tribes of Israel, if you will, okay? The chosen ones. Or what is this saying psychologically? For you to come and be joined with your conscious ego to the unconscious, basically to come home. Basically to come home, to come to mens rea in corpore sano, a sound mind in a sound body. Okay? So, okay. Okay, 864, okay? Being the base of the number 86,400, okay? Or a base for the number 86,400, the number of seconds in the day to be divided by 1,440, okay? Or a base for, or the base of the number 144,000, the fullness of time, and the fullness here being that of the best that is to come out of eschatological times, which connects back directly to the time, times, and half a time, which is the circle, the square and the circle, or the square and circle, and a half a time, the triangle, okay, which is the symbol of the great work, which I'll throw back up here again. I've just said it in a sentence form, a sentence that has been used to denote time and judgment and protection and all these other different types of things in the Bible eschatologically, okay? So it connects back to the time, times, and half a time biblically mentioned, which nods and points a finger back to the sign or symbol of the great work and the degrees held therein. 180 degrees being the mysterious number that brings 1,260 to our base number of 1,440, okay? Another amazing fact that links 864 ever closer to our explanation here is that the most base roots of the Hebrew word for the conjunctio, right, which means to be in holy marriage, which our sign of the great work culminates in, is ba chatana kedush, okay? That's 2 plus 8 plus 400 plus 58 plus 100 plus 4 plus 300 equals, guess what? Guess what it equals? I'm pretty sure you can tell me what it equals by this point, because I've said the dang number too many dang times. 864. Boom. Okay? To be in holy marriage, the conjunctio itself. That number 1,440, okay, or 144,000, okay, is a number that links back to the conjunctio of what? The conscious and the unconscious, what I've just been talking to you right here. What that one symbol that I'm going to throw back up on the screen again means ever more so, okay? Because these explanations here I'm giving you, all right? So at this point, I could continue to call off numbers and explain about their esoteric meanings, but I will close here by assuring you, I'm assuring you here, okay, that I have dug up and exposed a grand key of measurement that can be applied to various systems and philosophies, myths, stories, and more. The key will come to life as you study. Study to show thyself a workman, to show thyself approved, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of God, or the word of truth. okay? That's an old saying that Masons like to use, Freemasons, because I know a lot of them. I get the best conversations at a sitting to be able to chop it up with Freemasons, man. I'd rather talk to a Freemason than most average people on a street corner, because of the level of conversation that we're just gonna get out of one another. I love it. You know what I'm saying? So study. It will begin to speak and show you where it is mirrored, this symbol of the great work, okay? And although many of you only see mere geometric shapes, some of us with divine delight, see a grand key to the mystery of the cosmos and all that lies below it. As above, so it is below, okay? We're seeing the ratio, we're seeing the measure, okay? And I'm going to leave you with this, okay? And I just really thank you guys for being a part of this lecture tonight that I've given. And please give a like, please give us a subscribe, please share it to somebody you know, tag somebody in it. Please light up the comment section so that the algorithms can improve on this video if you like it as well, though, too, so more people can be able to be intrigued to engage. And until the next video, all that I ask you guys to do is to consider. What do you think I'm going to ask you? Consider studying and picking up some material that will allow you to deepen your knowledge of these things that I am talking about, because it is of the utmost importance in this day, in this age, and in these times, that you be equipped with knowledge that is going to help you see between the illusion, see between the lies, and not just see these things over years and years of a period. We need to get this fast, because there's something coming and it's right around the corner. And the thing is if we don't get knowledge like this, okay? And I'm not saying just from this source here, from this channel. If we don't get knowledge like this from somewhere else that's giving it out in a way that's decipherable and quickly attainable, okay? We like it quick, and I'm not trying to cater to that, but I'm just saying the time is short. We have to hasten, okay? So hopefully you enjoyed this. I'll be putting up layovers to guide you along the way in this video, so that you can go back if you want to and watch this video again and redigest. Check the comment section, because I will be linking to videos that correspond directly to this choice information here. Thank you again, one and all. Thinking in Circles, Isaiah Grant. I'm out.